Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the State and Local Government Committee meeting, December 9th. Just want to remind everybody to mute and turn off their camera when appropriate. Remind everyone that there will be a 3-minute time limit for testifying today. Also, at this time, would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just making sure everybody's talking.
We just want to know.
I'm going to try to have fun today because it might be my last meeting, like state and local government. Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Assemblyman Thompson.
Here.
Assemblyman Simonson.
Here.
Assemblyman Moen.
Here.
Assemblyman Karabenchak.
Here.
Vice Chair Fryman.
Here.
Chairman Mazzio.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay. The first item on the docket is Assembly Bill 4664. Rashad, are you reading that statement?
Yes, I will. Assembly Bill 4664. This bill authorizes the State Chief Diversity Officer to conduct a disparity study concerning the utilization of minority-owned and women-owned businesses in the state procurement process. Mr. Chairman, there are amendments. The committee proposes to amend the bill to, 1, change the time frame that the Chief Diversity Officer has to submit the officer's report to the legislature from within 1 year to within 18 months. And 2, require that every 4 years following the issuance of the first report, the Chief Diversity Officer submit an additional report to the legislature on whether study concerning the utilization of minority-owned and women-owned businesses in the procurement of goods and services in state agencies is needed, and provide that the officer may request an appropriation of funding for that study.
Okay. We have in favor, no need to testify, Hillary Chabrav, South Jersey Chamber of Commerce, Laura Gunn, New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce, and Christopher Emmelholtz, NJBIA. There's no slips in opposition. Is there any comments or concerns from the committee at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move the bill out of committee.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
On the motion to release Assembly Bill A664 and its identical Senate counterpart S2768, Assemblyman Thompson.
Yes.
Assemblyman Simonson.
Yes. Sorry. Had to unmute.
Assemblyman Moen.
Yes.
Assemblyman Karabenchak.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman.
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio.
Yes.
The bills are released as amended.
Next on the agenda is Assembly Bill 11880. Rashad, are you going to read the statement, please?
No, Pam is going to read that one.
Oh, sorry, Pam.
Hi, Chairman. Assembly Bill 1180 and its Senate counterpart S2644 would allow public libraries to dispose of certain library materials without advertising for public bids. And Mr. Chair, there are committee amendments to both bills, if I can read those into the record.
Okay.
The committee amendments to both bills would allow a Board of Education or other governing body of a local unit to sell personal property at private sale if such property's estimated fair value is more than 15% but less than but less than the actual bidding threshold, as that term is defined in the public schools contracting law and the local public contracts law, and if the contracting agent solicits at least 2 competitive offers where practicable. The property would be sold to the highest offer. In addition, if the estimated fair value of the property is less than 15% of the applicable bidding threshold, the committee amendments would allow the Board of Education or governing body to authorize the sale of such property by resolution without advertising for bids or soliciting competitive offers. Alternatively, the amendments would permit such property, valued at less than 15% of the bidding threshold, to be donated to various governmental units or nonprofit corporations, so long as the property is not used for political, partisan, sectarian, or religious purposes. The amendments expressly prohibit a Board of Education from donating property used to provide federal or state non-public services to non-public schools receiving services from the Board of Education.
Okay, we have no slips for or against this bill at this time. Is there any comments or concerns from the committee? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move this bill with the amendments out of the committee.
Moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sure. On the motion to amend and release A1180 and to amend and release its Senate counterpart S2644, Assemblyman Thompson,
Yes.
Assemblyman Simonson,
Yes.
Assemblyman Moen,
Yes.
Assemblyman Karavinchek,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman,
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio.
Yes.
A1180 and S2644 are released and amended, and the bills are identical.
Okay, next on the agenda is Assembly Bill 6093. Can we read the statement? Is that you, Pam?
That is not me.
That'll be me, Mr. Chairman.
Get it right one time.
Assembly Bill 6093. This bill mandates access to cancer screenings for firefighters through healthcare benefits plan or program provided by the public employer.
Okay, is there any, well, at this time we'll have in favor would like to testify, Dr. Patel? I'm sorry.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Patel, Manmohan Patel. I am a practicing physician for 40 years in New Jersey, and I've been taking care of, I am also a medical director of a program called Captain Boucher program, which was dedicated to firefighter screening for medical issues. And as a practicing physician, I can tell you that once the lung cancer is diagnosed, most of the time it is too late. And I strongly recommend that we should adapt this bill. I'm in favor of it because early detection is the only cure that we can do. By doing a serial screening, X-ray, blood test, and detecting it early is the only answer to this. And I strongly recommend that you pass this bill.
Thank you,
Do
Doctor.
you have
Any questions for Dr. Patel from the committee at this time? Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Next is Anthony Tarantino from the PFA.
Good afternoon, Chairman and the committee members. My name is Anthony Tarantino. I'm the Legislative Vice President for the PFA&J professional firefighters that represent 30,000 members throughout the state of New Jersey. But I'm also a Newark fire captain, and I just started my 33rd year on the fire department. And in that 33 years, I never had the opportunity to get a cancer screening, even though we're exposed to toxins and everything that we fight at a fire every day. When we passed the Tom Canzanella bill last year and the governor signed it, it was a long-fought battle to have cancer recognized as a workers' compensation issue. And this is our next step to make sure that our members are using the screening ability for they can get detected for screening for cancer early. If you get to 4th stage cancer, you're pretty much gone. So our goal is to have our members screened for cancer at least once every 3 years, and that will provide a baseline and not only the ability for our members to feel more confident when they go to work, but if God forbid they do get sick, we can catch it early versus catching it late, and it would save everyone heartache and money. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the bill sponsors for putting this bill up.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Any questions from the committee for Mr. Tarantino? Seeing none, we have in favor, no need to testify, Peter Guzzo, FOP, and there's no slips in opposition. Is there any comments right now from the committee? Somebody put their, I don't know where that's coming from. Well, that was interesting.
Could be worse.
Yeah, that's true. Do we have a motion to move this bill out of committee at this time?
Motion to move.
Second. Roll
On the
call.
motion to release Assembly Bill 6093, Assemblyman Thompson.
Was that Thompson or Simonson?
Thompson. Assemblyman Thompson.
Yes.
Assemblyman Simonson.
Yes, and I'm actually working to be a co-sponsor. I hope to be a co-sponsor on this, but thank you. Yes.
Assemblyman Moen.
Yes.
Assemblyman Karavinchak.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman.
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio.
Yes.
The bill is released.
Okay, next on the agenda is Assembly Bill 6148. Can we have the statement read, please?
Sure. Assembly Bill 6148 appropriates $37,174,636.71 from the New Jersey Library Construction Fund to provide grants for construction, reconstruction, development, extension, improvement, and furnishing of New Jersey's public libraries.
I wonder what the 71 cents for.
It's very important.
Okay. In favor, no need to testify, Michael Eatonton, New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce, Christopher Emmelholtz, NJBIA. There's no slips in opposition. Any concerns or comments from the committee at this time? I entertain a motion to move the bill out of committee.
Motion to release.
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
On the motion to approve A6148 and release from committee, Assemblyman Thompson,
Yes.
Assemblyman Simonson,
Yes.
Assemblyman Moen,
Yes.
Assemblyman Karavinchak,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman,
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio.
Yes.
The bill is favorably released.
Next on the agenda is the ACR Resolution 222. Can we have the statement read on this resolution, please?
Assembly current Resolution 222 and its identical Senate counterpart SCR-161 rescinds all applications previously transmitted by the New Jersey legislature to Congress calling for a constitutional convention.
Okay. We'll come back. I believe the sponsor is not on yet, Assemblyman Chevalotti. Is David Super here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to testify at this time?
I'd be happy to do so. Thank you Thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
This resolution and its Senate counterpart would take New Jersey off, unequivocally off any list of states that are seeking an Article 5 convention to amend our Constitution. This is the worst possible time to have such a convention. We are obviously a sadly divided and conflicted country, and the commitment to dialogue and coming up with long-run solutions is missing. If we have a convention at this time, all manner of things that we've all taken for granted in our Constitution could disappear on us. In addition, this is a terrible time to have a constitutional convention, to have a convention amending our Constitution because of the enormous influence of money in politics.
Excuse me, Mr. Super. Hey, we're hearing some noises here. Can everybody make sure that they're muted so the people who are testifying, so everybody can hear what they're saying? Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, if we have a convention now, it will be subject to enormous influence by special interest groups, moneyed interest groups. As weak as the laws are limiting money's influence in politics in regular legislative and referendum matters, there are even fewer that apply to this. You can imagine the oil and gas interests seeing this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to amend the Constitution to prevent environmental legislation. You can imagine groups that are hostile to civil rights legislation, getting rid of or gutting the 14th Amendment, and so on. You can see how corrupt the process of seeking an Article 5 convention is by what some of the proponents have been doing to try to get there. After insisting that you could only have a convention if 34 states agreed on a single application, proponents are now saying they want to combine applications from completely different eras and purposes. In New Jersey's case, they want to combine an application that you submitted in 1861 to try to prevent the Civil War with applications trying to cut back on federal constitutional rights that other states, largely red states, have been passing very recently. If they'll go to the lengths of taking a resolution, obviously out of context, as in the New Jersey resolution, there are no limits on what they will do at a convention. There are no rules that allow a convention to be limited to a single purpose, and there's no body that has the power to enforce such rules if they exist. Please support this and prevent us from facing a runaway convention and losing all that's precious in our Constitution. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Chairman, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. In favor, no need to testify. We have Patricia Campus Medina, Latina Civic Action, Chris Estevez, Janine Hansen, Eagle Forum, Marsha Marley, Blue Wave, New Jersey, Hanel Patel, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Javier Robles from Latino Action Network, and Nicole Rodriguez from New Jersey Policy Perspective. Chevrolet, Selman, you on right now?
I am, Chairman. I apologize.
That's all right. Go ahead. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chairman, and I apologize to the committee. Work double booked me today. But Chairman Mazzio, members of the committee, thank you for considering ACR-222. You know, ACR-222 will rescind all applications previously transmitted by New Jersey State Legislature to Congress calling for a constitutional convention. I am proud to be here today as the primary sponsor of ACR-222. I think passage of this resolution will be historically significant. I just joined as Professor Super, I believe, was finishing up. And, He is by far a more accomplished constitutional law expert than I. But let me just say, at the risk of repeating some of what he stated, since I did not hear his testimony, Article 5 of the United States Constitution declares only two ways to propose amendments to the Constitution. Either an amendment can be proposed by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress, or if 2/3 of the state, or in this case, 34, across the nation call for the Constitutional Convention. You know, the United States Constitution has been amended 27 times, but never through a Constitutional Convention. In fact, the last Constitutional Convention we had was in 1787, when the current U.S. Constitution replaced the Articles of Confederation. Many states, including New Jersey, have passed previous applications calling for an Article 5 convention. However, the number of applications nationwide has never met the 34 state threshold. It is also important to note that New Jersey's calls for a constitutional convention have been very topic specific, including the 2015 call for a constitutional convention to overturn Citizens United. Given this lack of progress, pro-convention advocates have been working hard to combine plenary or generic calls for a constitutional convention with a single subject application to reach their 2/3 state threshold. For example, our call for a convention to overturn Citizens United can now be combined, or is being combined, with another state's call to limit the role of the federal government. I believe that any effort in meeting the 34 state threshold and hosting an Article 5 convention at this time would jeopardize our very system of government and potentially our civil liberties. Our country has never been more divided, and I do not believe now is the time to weaken the foundational document of our democracy. There is no guidance in Article 5 of the Constitution outlining the protocol for a constitutional convention. Regardless of what issue a convention is called for to discuss, there are absolutely no rules limiting the convention to one subject. If a constitutional convention were called, it would grant states the opportunity to scrap the existing constitution and rewrite an entirely new document. I know people laugh, but I'm going to repeat that because I think the threat to our Constitution is real. A constitutional convention would grant states the opportunity to rewrite the existing Constitution. As a result, I respectfully request that the committee today advance ACR-222 to rescind all previous calls for a constitutional convention. Now is the time to ensure that New Jersey is not unintentionally counted in efforts to hold a convention and rewrite the U.S. Constitution. I know you will hear from members of the public that will advocate for a constitutional convention for purposes of overturning Citizens United. But please remember, Article 5 is not limited in scope. Therefore, although I agree with their desire, the reality is that we as representatives of New Jersey cannot allow this noble desire to be hijacked to attack the Constitution. Thank you again for considering this resolution.
Okay, any questions for the Assemblyman from the committee? At this time, Rashard or Pam, there's opposed, would like to testify. How many do we have exactly today on the waiting
I
list?
didn't hear my name, and I am hoping to testify.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Chairman? Did you say oppose and no need to testify?
I'm sorry, opposed and would like to testify. How many do we have?
I believe we have roughly 35.
Okay. I see that we have, how many members from the Wolf Pack are here? Is there 3 of you on here right now?
I'm one.
Wolfpack put out a call to volunteers, and about 30 people from New Jersey wanted to tell their stories and explain why this is important to them.
Well,
in addition to all the ones who signed up with no need to testify.
Well, for the sake of, I don't want redundancy here. If we could have just one of you from Wolfpack speak, it would be better as far as, and just remember, it's a 3-minute time frame here for testifying.
I can tell you that people from Wolfpack are here for different reasons. I'm here as the legal expert. We also have 2 former state leaders. We have a new immigrant. We have people who are here for very different purposes who feel that it's very important as citizens of New Jersey that you hear their views before you take this drastic step.
Well, I'm going to go through the list, and if I hear redundancy, I'm going to cut it short. So I understand, you want to put your voice out there, but we're trying to we'll try to get through this meeting, and those who are opposed can testify. So first, we'll have David Beedolf. It's Let Us Vote for BBA Citizens Campaign. Are you with us, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. When David Super said this is the worst time due to divide in our country, I would like to take you back and put yourself in the position of the legislators from New Jersey in 1861 when they passed this resolution. Could there have been a more divided time in our country than being on the brink of war? Repeatedly in their application for an Article 5 convention for proposing amendments, they didn't limit it to any one subject because there were multiple issues at the time. But they did start off in the preamble with something that is profoundly important to my granddaughters. And that is that the Constitution of the United States and the reason we formed this government and the citizens approved the Constitution, it was to protect the security and the prosperity of the American people. And it was repeated twice. I didn't even know what this word means, but palladium of their political safety and prosperity is part of the resolution. So we fast forward to today, and we have $29 trillion of debt. And the previous chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mullen, has repeatedly said that our debt is the greatest threat to our national security. Admiral Bill Owens was the former vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He says the same thing. Many of the military leaders and have said that if our finances are weakened, it will weaken our ability to protect our nation. And so then we go to what this debt means to my granddaughters, and that is it's unsustainable according to every long-term forecast by the Congressional Budget Office. And what does that mean? What it means is that the prosperity of this nation is on the line because of rising costs of interest. In fact, a few years ago, the CBO said, under current law, the share of the economic pie, the GDP, that would go to the federal government would go from 21% to 49% in 40 years, meaning that the prosperity of the American people is on the line unless we halt this unsustainable deficit spending. So then we go to why this resolution calling for an Article 5 convention on any subject. It was, in their words, as a last resort that they passed this Article 5 resolution. What if they had had...
Sir, your time is up. I'm sorry. Any questions for Mr. Boodle from the committee? Seeing none, we have Hadija Brahim. Are you here, sir? How about Ruthie Dioliveria? Okay. We have from the Wolfpack, Samuel Fieldman.
Yes, thank you, sir.
All right.
I'm here as one of the top national experts on the Article 5 convention process. I started studying this 10 years ago as a young lawyer for two reasons. My twin girls, Hannah and Ginny. I don't want them growing up in a world where government policy is decided by whether the left-wing or right-wing billionaire donates more money. And when they both agree, well, that's a disaster for the rest of us. And that's really what's happening here today. By the time my kids were 3 years old, New Jersey passed SCR-132 to call for an amendment proposing a limited convention to end the corrupting influence of money in politics. New Jersey affirmed the promise that I made to my children, and they did so over the objection of the Koch brothers, who sent lobbyists spouting falsehoods about the dangers of the convention. And I watched the late Senator Barnes praise our founding fathers and argue back against those lobbyists, saying in his words that the convention process, quote, is one way to cut down on the agonizing futility, close quote, of the prospect of asking Congress to fix their own corruption. And then just a month ago, immediately after the voters were so frustrated with his corruption that they elected somebody entirely unknown in his place, Senator Sweeney sought to appease those donors and rescind that effort, pushing SCR-161, now ACR-222, through the Senate at lightning speed. And here, let me use my legal expertise. This resolution was so hastily drafted that it fails, unless you amend it, to even rescind all Article 5 convention calls. There's one that it simply missed because it was drafted so poorly and so quickly. And the supposed target of this resolution, the 1861 call that you've heard about, as you just heard from Mr. Bidoff, who I know and who is very incorrect about this, with all due respect, David, I don't see any argument that call can be used for the balanced budget amendment. But even if you think it can, and you don't want it to be, the response is to rescind that call and the other old calls. There is no credible argument. Absolutely no one with any credibility is claiming that the Wolfpack resolution, SCR-132, can possibly be used for a balanced budget amendment. David Bidoff and his group are not claiming that. If it could, we already have calls in Vermont and in California and in Rhode Island. They would already be able to count 36 convention calls. Even if New Jersey rescinded its resolution, it would do absolutely nothing. That's why we know, both from what Mr. Bidoff says himself, and you can ask him directly, he's here, as well as just the facts on the ground, that there is no argument that call poses any risk. That's why I asked you to either amend SCR-222 or to end it entirely and fulfill the promise that New Jersey made to my children 7 years ago. And I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said, I'm National Counsel for Wolfpack, and I'm an expert on this subject matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fieldman. Is there any questions for Mr. Fieldman at this time from the committee? Seeing none, we have, is Jeffrey Hanrahan here? Michael House? Mark Hunsinger? Alex Incayo?
Yep, that's me.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Assemblyman. Thank you.
Can you tell me where you're from, sir?
Yep, I'm from West Windsor Township.
Are you with any organization?
Yeah, I was invited through Wolfpack.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, you can testify now.
All right. My name is Alex Inkiao, a proud resident of West Windsor Township. My close family has been based in New Jersey for half a century, and I'm testifying to implore the state and local committee to vote no on ACR-222. My grandma is a type 2 diabetic, and pharmaceutical companies have espoused price gouging of insulin. In my opinion, it is unacceptable for my grandma to be a pawn for politicians that are politically motivated by pharmaceutical company lobbying efforts and accepting legalized bribery in the form of campaign contributions. In the aftermath of the 2010 Supreme Court Citizens United ruling, corporate PAC donations have an outsized role in the policy priorities of elected officials. Donald Newhouse's $19 billion net worth or John Overdeck's $4.8 billion net worth should not amplify the priorities of elected officials through legalized bribery in the form of campaign contributions. We are deserving of upholding a 2014 precedent in SCR-132 that ensures corporate PAC donations do not overrule the material needs of New Jerseyans.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Next is Ken Ivory here, all the way from Utah. Sharon Kelly. David Lipowitz.
That would be me.
How you doing today, sir?
Doing fabulous, thank you.
Okay.
I'm from Morristown, New Jersey.
Okay.
All right, may I testify?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. I am David Leibowitz from Morristown, New Jersey, and I absolutely oppose ACR-222 due to its ability and desire to dismantle our democracy. Now, I've seen these testimonies from these lovely two people, from David Super and others, that this is a very much a anti-democratic thing to do. However, I believe it is very much dismantling our democracy to take away what has been hard fought by all of these different amendments, especially for the amendment to get money out of politics. Now, speaking from a more personal story, I, as a young kid, went on many trips to different places around the world, and I loved learning about animals and the environment, and went to places like the rainforest and such. And climate change is very much a very serious threat, in the sense that it will very much make many of these areas inhospitable. You all know about polar bears. It's a very overused trope, but it will do damage to them due to not being able to find active prey, especially seals, because the ice has melted. Now, the problem with that is that climate change has been funded by corporations such as the Koch brothers and Exxon, through groups trying to change the narrative and influence politicians through massive amounts of campaign donation contributions and lobbying, such as what has been happening more recently in a story about changes to block pushes for clean energy emissions that is happening right now. So I implore all of you to oppose this this resolution due to a democratic process and to give us freedom from corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Leibowitz? Seeing none, moving on. Tom, is it Llewellyn?
Llewellyn.
Llewellyn. How you doing, sir?
Very good.
Go ahead, you're on. You got your 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking in opposition to your 222. And the basic issue here is money. Money at the election cycle level and at the federal level, where largest reckless spending is going on to really help influence the politics all the way across the country. The dispersions against this one vehicle, where the people have a chance to push back against that and exercise their voice through their state legislators, calling for an amendment convention, is really the one pressure relief valve that we have that most other countries don't. When you get to a point where you're massively spending money like this, you end up in a downward spiral, and then you end up as Venezuela, where the people there are trying to choose which zoo animal is the most tasty that they might be able to have on their plate that evening. We're focused on getting this amendment process underway. That's long overdue, but 40 years worth of efforts of pushing to really get the Congress more responsive and not have money in the election process and in Washington supersede the will of the and desires of the people for reform. This is an amendment convention, not a constitutional convention. It is focused on the subject. It will be focused because that's what the state legislators like yourselves will insist upon by their delegates. That was unanimously supported by the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, just recently, where the states do have a full authority to prosecute wayward delegates and recall them instantly and reappoint someone that will follow their explicit instructions. The real heart here is that no matter what the issue, we're talking about being able to have people exercise their perspective on the issues of the day. When Congress ignores or money in politics have at the state and the federal level have deafened the otherwise responsive politics, it creates more of a divided and frustrated public. We're here to simply allow a gathering of states to talk about issues of that might be being ignored on a broad base for an extended time. The main issue of, in your case, is for the corruption of election funding that has tainted your state and others for many years. Thank you very much for allowing me to put my 2 cents with your efforts in trying to oppose this issue.
Okay, next is Alexa Lower.
Hello, Alexa Lauer. Yes, residing currently in Toms River, New Jersey. I'm here today on my lunch break to urge you to vote against corruption. Please do not rescind the convention calls. We must preserve the free and fair election resolution. When I sat down to think about how this affects the day-to-day of me, an average American, many things came to mind. Lobbyists buy off politicians so that we can't lower drug prices, raise the minimum wage, take action on climate change, have access to affordable housing. The list goes on and on. My story probably reflects that of many New Jersey residents. I work 2 jobs to pay rent that I can barely afford on my own. And since we've legalized big bribery, big corporations get by with no regulation and buy up all the houses on the market and then rent them back to me at exorbitant costs. I graduated from a state college in 2012 and I'm still paying off those loans. And since we've legalized bribery, politicians choose to take no action on student loan debt forgiveness. I co-started a small business in 2017, a small organic farm, but I had to walk away because of some health issues. I needed a 9-to-5 so that I could have access to health care in order to avoid medical debt. And since we've legalized bribery, our politicians cannot lower drug prices or create a public option. Wages are so low, even working 2 jobs, 80 hours a week, I've been unable to save to afford a down payment on a home, which is supposed to be the American dream. But since we've legalized bribery, large corporations, probably like the one I work for part-time, keep wages stagnant and at starvation levels. When we legalize bribery, we end up with people like George E. Norcos, who was recently tagged as a shadow governor. Is this really the story we want people to read about New Jersey? Not me. If you rescind this convention call, you are in favor of a more corrupt New Jersey and America. So please, I urge you to preserve the free and fair election resolution. How strong? Too strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larry. Any questions? Okay, moving right along, we have Hector Meneses. I'm sorry if I botched that. Okay. Lyle Pazzello. Maureen Roach. Frank Slater. Lisa Smith.
Hello, Chairman. I'm here.
Okay. How you
Chairman,
doing?
I'm here. I'm sorry. Good.
Go ahead. You're on.
Thank you for your time today, Chairman. I appreciate it. My name is Frank Slater. I'm from Union Beach, New Jersey, and we need to keep forward on this path to having a constitutional convention. We cannot let fear tactics stop us. You cannot, at a constitutional convention, you cannot rewrite the Constitution. That is nonsense. And yes, the legislator can vote to streamline the process to only talk about what needs to be talked about. So I don't know where all that other stuff comes from, all that other noise, but it's just nonsense. And it's very easy to find the facts. Every single person that's spoken so far has made a point. They made it in different ways, but the point is money in politics causes corruption. And the people that are supposed to represent the citizens of the state and the citizens of this country do not do that. This would put an end to all that. this would make it so that our representatives have to represent us. They're not in it for a paycheck later on. They're not in it for the paycheck now from the corporations. You want to get voted back in. You'll be hungry on that power, and you want to help the people. That is the bottom line. You need to help the people of your state, and eventually, you do a great job there, you'll get to help out the people of this country. All of the people that are doing great in this country, let's be honest, are Justice Democrats, and those that are part of Wolfpack know who those people are. And some of them here probably help them get elected. They don't take the money from special interests. They say things that most people in Washington don't like. We need more of them. At the federal level, we need more of them at the state level. When you take the money out, the people win. Your job title is civil servants. You serve the people. And in the words of the great Nina Turner, you don't serve owner-donors. You serve the people. So please vote no, keep New Jersey on the right path. Have us be on the forefront. The forefront to a constitutional convention that could change everything for this country. And let's be that beacon that actually goes and changes the world. Because we're not the only country with problems of corruption. But we can be that beacon that changes everything for the world. Thank you for your time, Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Slater? Seeing none, Lisa Smith? Meredith Smythe? Christoph Vidalis?
Hi.
How you doing, sir?
I am doing good. My name is Christoph Vidalis. I am from Teaneck, New Jersey. Could I go?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay, perfect. So I am an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago, and like many West Indians, I came here on the promise of America, of being a shining city on the hill, a fantastical place my mom would tell me about between our trips from here to from New Jersey, from Trinidad to New Jersey, to get cancer treatment. Unfortunately, it's a battle with cancer she ultimately lost, and now I see the cost of medical bills for people like my mom going up. And Medicare for All has over 70% national support, yet the politicians who we elect cannot seem to pass any bills addressing the issue. I'm here fighting for the dream of America because I truly believe if you love something, you're going to fight for it. And we do not have a democracy if politicians can be openly bribed. Just last year alone, the pharmaceutical industry has spent over $300 million on lobbying. I will call that a bribe if there is anything to call a bribe. And I don't know anyone that $300 million will not affect. Earlier, someone said that our system of government would be under threat if we continue to amend the Constitution. I would say our Constitution is already, our system of government is already under threat. And why, if you're with us to change money in politics, why aren't you actually fighting to fix the issue rather than say we can't do it? Let's make a country that we could be proud of that actually fulfills the American dream. Thank you for letting me testify today on behalf of, on this issue.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Vidalis? See none. We have Reno Banerjee.
Yes, I'm here.
How are you doing today?
Doing well.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, so my name is Ronald Banerjee. I've been a volunteer for Wolfpack, New Jersey since 2012, and during that time I've been a team organizer. Before joining Wolfpack, I was interested in politics, but I never got personally involved because I felt that as an ordinary person I couldn't make a difference. As a trainer in Wolfpack, I taught new volunteers about how they could get involved, the history of activism in this country, about local government, and how Article 5 allows the U.S. Constitution to be amended. The highlight of my involvement in Wolfpack, New Jersey was when you passed SCR-132 in 2014, which ACR-222 would undo. Assemblyman Chiaravolati already explained the two ways an amendment could be proposed, and although an Article 5 convention has never been convened, it's important to remember throughout our history Many important amendments began as Article 5 calls from the states, including those expanding civil rights and women's suffrage. ACR-222 states unrelated petitions could be aggregated. An Article 5 convention has never been convened because this is not possible. It would require bad actors to disregard the purpose and aggregate unrelated petitions. Even if it were true and an Article 5 convention was formed for a purpose not intended, it is you in the state legislature who will appoint a delegation. You can select people who would vote down any amendment proposals. I believe most legislatures will do the same. A convention like this would not be able to form an amendment. An Article 5 convention on its own could not rewrite the Constitution. Article 5 requires ratification of any amendment proposed, whether through Congress or through an Article 5 convention. It's necessary for 3/4 of the states to affirm an amendment, and it's in your power to block a rewritten Constitution by not ratifying it. The threshold for amending the U.S. Constitution is extremely high under Article 5, and this resolution does nothing to protect it. This resolution will reverse SCR-132, which had the support of hundreds of volunteers in New Jersey, including myself. We made phone calls to your offices and met with you and your staff to advocate for SCR-132. We still believe that a constitutional amendment is the only way New Jersey will be able to enact any meaningful campaign finance reform. In 2019, the New Jersey legislature overwhelmingly passed S-150, which would require groups to report when an individual contributed more than $10,000 a year for campaign work. This law was nullified in the courts before it could take effect. We need a constitutional amendment to allow your campaign finance laws to stand. This resolution undermines those efforts. I urge you to please do the right thing and vote down ACR-222. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, we have John Burke. Karen Chambers.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
How are you? You're on.
Thank you, sir. I'm Karen Chambers, a resident of Sussex County. My 82-year-old mother, who still holds a full-time job, and my handicapped brother live in Mercer County. I'm here because I believe that my voice in New Jersey should be more important than the Koch brothers, who live in Kansas. I believe that my brother's voice in New Jersey should be more important than Michael Bloomberg's, who lives in New York. And I believe that my mother's voice in New Jersey should be more important than the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, which this year spent over $29 million lobbying politicians. My mom doesn't have $29 million to buy the attention of politicians, but she does have the promise made in the Constitution that she will be represented. And in case the day came when it would cost $29 million to buy the attention of those who are supposed to represent us, she has the safety valve of Article 5, as long as the state of New Jersey is willing to exercise its right to demand a limited convention to amend the Constitution when Congress fails us, to exercise the right of the states to check and balance the federal government. The proposal that comes from a constitutional convention cannot become the law of the land until it is ratified by 38 states. So it's stunning that the New Jersey Senate passed a bill, now considered here as ACR-222, out of fear that such a convention might run amok. They're tilting at windmills. Passing this bill would do no good other than to codify their ignorance of constitutional law, but it will do great harm in rescinding SCR-132 and breaking trust with the citizens of New Jersey. SCR-161 in the Senate, which is the predecessor to ACR-222, was sponsored by Senate President Sweeney. On November 16th of this year, Senator Sweeney stated, "We have to focus on the things that are important to people in this state, and we have to listen to them." Why then, on the eve of his ouster from the Senate, does Senator Sweeney, armed with misinformation, introduce this bill that turns a deaf ear to New Jerseyans? We told you what was important to us when we asked you to pass SCR-132. Senator Sweeney voted in favor of SCR-132. I urge you in this committee not to suffer the indignity of becoming an instrument of this folly and not to allow yourselves to be used as a vehicle for this deceit. Campaign finance reform is critically important to me, to my family, and to hundreds of New Jerseyans, and I ask you not to throw this baby out with Senator Sweeney's bathwater. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Is there any questions? Seeing none, we have hello? Don Chawla?
Donald Chawla.
Yes, you here, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're on.
I'm here to speak out against ACR-222 and SCR-161. My family cannot afford the cost of prescription drugs and are struggling to make ends meet. It's not just my family. Anytime anyone goes to the hospital, they're burdened with the stress and uncertainty of not knowing if their insurance will cover the care they need and if they can even afford the bill, as if the underlying illness wasn't enough to deal with. Our government is unresponsive to the healthcare needs of its people. While other countries have long since moved past this issue, it's insane. And no wonder why the world has lost respect for America. The massive amounts of money spent in our federal elections from outside special interests, foreign, corporate, wherever it's coming in, often with little to no transparency, is drowning out the voices of average citizens and impeding the functionality of our federal Congress, which ought to be dependent on the people alone. Federalist 52. Over 70% of all Americans are in favor of the following: an affordable public health care option, closing billionaire tax loopholes, a carbon tax and dividend, raising the minimum wage, background checks, expanding background checks on gun purchases. Until the root of the problem, the corrupting influence of money in politics, is fixed, nothing will ever change. Every campaign is the same promise for change, as candidates scramble to out-fundraise their opponents, via telling their donors one thing and their voters something else. Even well-intentioned candidates, desperate to be campaign viable, desperate to be competitive, they can only be so through massive donations, through this legalized system of bribery that corporations in foreign countries are now taking control of. We got billionaires hiding through convoluted networks of nonprofits, think tanks, and super PACs, basically in legalized bribery. These donors call the shots on legislation. They push here, they obstruct there, they maximize their bottom line at the end of the day. Every election is a political power auction cycle, and it's our tax dollars that are being handed out to corporations and whoever wins them. How much longer must this go on? Now we're looking at my home state of New Jersey. I've been here for as long as I can remember, 25 years, going in the wrong direction for reasons that legally don't make sense. Please have a meeting with Sam Feldman on this call. He will explain quite a bit more of this. The integrity of Article 5 convention call process is at stake in the bill ACR-222, aka SCR-161, literally the integrity of the Constitution. Not only is this a misinterpretation of Article 5, it's legally invalid, it's an insult to the framers' intentions, it's an insult to the beautiful system of checks and balances they designed that inspired every other democracy and constitution that came after it all over the world. Please modify the language of ACR-222 to reflect the peer-reviewed legal consensus.
Thank you, sir. That
calls for separate subject matters cannot be combined.
Sir, your time's up.
And thank you, sir. Please defeat ACR-222 if you cannot modify it. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, next is Lucas Dicus. Mark Doangus.
Yes, that's me.
How are you, sir?
Can you hear me? I'm good. Yes, my name is Mark Danger. I'm a former member of Wolfpack. I was also active in passing another bill that gave a call to Congress to reduce the corrupting influence of money in politics. I realize that the New Jersey legislature might want to keep careful track of its calls for an amendment convention, and while I don't know all of the past calls, I can guess that many have become irrelevant. But the concerns that drive this rescission, as I understand it, are that Article 5 Amendments Convention might be convened for whatever purpose and then address any other purpose it determines while in session. There is no basis for this theory. From the ACR-222 statement, although Congress has never called a convention, it has received hundreds of petitions from state legislatures over 2 centuries calling for conventions to address various issues. Congress is obliged, end quote, Congress is obliged to call an amendments convention when the requisite number of states have submitted for such a call. ACR-222 points out that hundreds of calls are already on the books, and yet Congress and its many legal advisors have never concluded that the call is officially, that is legally, in play. Further, the obvious constraint to calling an amendments convention is that the topic of discourse differs from one call for convention to the next. Further still, this makes clear the supremacy of the assigned topic at any subsequent convention, inasmuch as it has been possible to call such a convention without a consistently expressed topic. It seems from just these observations that the concerns for ACR-222 proposes to address are actually obviated right there in the statement of section ACR-222 itself. As for the current environment within the nation, SCR-132, the bill previously referred to by many others, is quite a few states for meeting the full requirements for an amendments convention. So talking about our current political environment is somewhat irrelevant. We in New Jersey are a leader on this issue. And any such call proceeds, as it proceeds toward the requisite number of calls, it applies pressure on Congress to address the topic or else surrender its role to craft the best amendment. So this serves a purpose even if we never get to a convention. There are many doubters and many checks and balances from advocates on both sides of the divide on how this call should be handled. But what seems to be happening right now is that the doubters have created a theory that allows, that basically takes away our ability to control this issue in our own way. As I've mentioned, I realize that the New Jersey legislature might want to keep careful track of its own calls. But SCR-132 was a grassroots-driven bill that remains wholly relevant, as many have brought up here. So this bill, ACR-222, from my perspective, is most relevantly a direct appeal of 132. And I will consider it so, as will other voters.
Thank you. Marie Kimmel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How are you?
Good, how are you? My name is Dr. Marie Henselder Kimmel of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I am the New Jersey State Chapter Coordinator of American Promise, a cross-partisan citizen advocacy organization dedicated to correcting the corrosive effects of unlimited money in politics by passing a constitutional amendment. We oppose rescinding SCR-132, passed in 2014, that called for the limited constitutional convention to limit the corrupting influence of money and overturn the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. We ask the committee to either vote against ACR-222 and SCR-161 or to exempt SCR-132 by amendment. I began volunteering with American Promise 4 years ago because I was extremely frustrated that unresolved policy issues that affected my patients' health and the health of many Americans were in gridlock despite the fact that clear majorities of Americans supported common sense solutions to many of these issues. I was furious when I learned that the gridlock was kept in place by huge campaign donations by industry groups and millions of dollars spent on lobbying that ultimately protect the profit margins of the donors. How can we say we have a representative government if it does not protect the common good more than the bank accounts of rich donors? Unaffordable drug prices in the U.S. were a motivating issue for me in my gynecology practice. I was frustrated to care for young women with severe pain from endometriosis that caused them to miss work and threaten their ability to bear children. But the best medications to treat endometriosis are very expensive and unaffordable to many patients despite having basic health insurance. Yet efforts by our federal and state lawmakers to reduce drug prices, some of which are now going on through the New Jersey legislature, are fought by Big Pharma. Pharma profits are as healthy as ever, though, while 40% of Americans say they didn't take a medication as prescribed in the last year due to its unaffordability. Citizens United and other Supreme Court decisions have led to this untenable situation, and a constitutional amendment is the best way to correct the root cause. None of our 27 constitutional amendments so far have been successfully passed by an Article 5 convention, but history shows us that the threat of one can induce Congress to ask. In fact, the 17th Amendment which introduced popular election of senators, was passed after that threat was made clear. New Jersey legislature has repeatedly expressed its support to limit money in politics, and I say that rescinding SCR-122 convention call would be a step backwards and the wrong message to Congress right now in the very severe need to correct the issue of money in politics. Please amend or to, exempt SCR-132 or oppose this 222. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Herb Tarbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Herb Tarbus from Piscataway, New Jersey, and I'm here representing the Coalition for Citizens Initiative in New Jersey. I'm not a member of WOLPAC, but I would like to thank them for their advocacy on this issue. I strongly urge a no vote on ACR-222. Our Declaration of Independence states that governments derive their powers from the consent of the governed. And the First Amendment asserts a right of citizens to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It is this basic fundamental right which the passage of ACR-222 will infringe upon. The form and structure of this legislature, which is considering this item, is derived from the New Jersey Constitution, a document the people have been effectively locked out of with no ability to determine their chosen form of government for the last 171 years. The last time the people of New Jersey convened a constitutional convention to address the overall structure and form of this legislature was 1844. The legislature and government of New Jersey has not been deriving their just powers via the consent of the governed. How did this happen? Well, for the last half century, the New Jersey electoral system has been operating in a clearly and blatantly unconstitutional manner, and I find it curious that this bill was introduced by the assembly member who was recently discarded like an old shoe by the Democratic political machine's use of the corrupt ballot device known as the county line. So I ask this committee to consider, who are you serving? Are you serving the people of New Jersey or the corrupt political machines which have seized our government? Political machines which effectively control our media, government, and political parties, which create and seek to perpetuate political polarization by design. I urge this committee to take up the question of convening a limited New Jersey State Constitutional Convention to address the structure and membership of the State Senate and General Assembly, as well as the people's right to petition the government, known as initiative and referendum, a federal constitutional right which the people of New Jersey are currently being denied. That would seem to be in service of the people rather than compliance with New Jersey's powerful political machines. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ariana Satalius.
Hello, Chairman. Yes, Ariana Chattalus.
How are you? You're on.
Doing good, thank you. I live in Bordentown City, and as a former Wolfpack, New Jersey state leader, I want to first thank you, Chairman Mazzeo, for previously supporting our resolution, SCR-132, the Free and Fair Elections Amendment, which calls for a limited Article 5 convention to address the corrupting influence of money in politics. I'm here today to tell you why you need to oppose ACR-222. I work as an environmental scientist with a focus on helping our great but vulnerable state achieve climate change resiliency. It probably won't come as a surprise that any real progress around the climate crisis is stymied by the influence that special interests have over our government. I am reminded every day at work that Congress no longer represents us, we the people, which was the promise that led my parents, who are both immigrants from Cyprus, to move here and raise a family. They always tell me, my parents, they tell me this is the best country in the world where true democracy lives. And so I will always fight for that truth and their dream. That is why I was there on the day we passed SCR-132 and became the 5th state in American history to take the necessary step toward campaign finance reform. And well, I wish very much that I didn't have to come back to remind you that the reason we the people achieved what the lobbyists of Koch Enterprises could not that day when they tried to oppose us is because the legislature read the research and they made an informed decision. I'm urging you again to use evidence and precedents to inform your decision today. ACR-222 only serves as a misinterpretation of the Article 5 process. It will not only rescind our previous victory dealing with the top-rated #1 issue of our country and your constituents, but it is also a direct attack to the safeguards that our founding fathers included under Article 5. The limited convention strategy is meant to be used by the states when we cannot rely on Congress to act. We know the historical record is clear that most amendments started with a convention campaign through the states and then Congress proposing it. 4 out of the last 10 amendments started with state level pushes. We know that based on the Constitution, based on precedents, based on all peer-reviewed sources and the majority of published scholar opinions, we know that a call for an Article 5 convention to discuss one topic would not result in an amendment on a different topic, nor would that ever be likely to survive the final ratification step required by 75% of the states. That's 38 states. There's no warranted fear here. There's no reason to believe otherwise. We cannot fall victim to the misinformation and fear-mongering campaign ACR-222 represents and recklessly bring down SCR-132 with it. I ask that you vote no today, proudly, and proudly stand up for what we accomplished with the Free and Fair Elections Amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Richard, is that all we have on the docket as far as testimonies?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay. Is there anybody that we missed?
Yes, you missed Ken Ivory.
I think we called Mr. Ken Ivory before, but he wasn't on, but he's on now.
Okay, Ken.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Ken Ivory, Utah State Legislature. I chair the Center to Restore the Balance of Government. I appreciate you taking time to consider this. It's a big issue. I'm really heartened by the fact that you've had testimony across the political spectrum. And I think something to focus on is this is not issue specific. This is a structure. This is a mechanism to deal with imbalance in our government. You know, our founders did something absolutely revolutionary. They stood for the principle that the people are sovereign and that government exists to secure the rights of the people. And then they created an entirely new, unprecedented form of government. They said, we're going to have 2 spheres of government. We're going to have national and state, and those 2 work in harmony. And it's the equilibrium, the healthy tension between the 2 that actually secures the rights of the people. And it's the states then that it's their responsibility to maintain that equilibrium and that balance in that governing partnership. And that's what these people are all talking about today. They're talking about a system out of balance for any number of issues. And it's the states that have not only the right, but the responsibility. It's our own legitimacy, U.S. constitutional role to keep the system in balance. And Article 5 is that critical tool to that. So think about what happens in Article 5, right? I mean, you have committee meetings all the time. You meet as Republicans and Democrats. You discuss problems. You refine and consider what you may do in a committee. And then you decide whether or not to send that to the floor. Article 5 is a committee of states. It's a convention. They discuss problems. They can take evidence and hear witnesses and refine proposals. And then if they decide that there's a proposal that has merit to restore the balance in that governing partnership to secure the rights of the people, they send that proposal out for ratification to the people. Then and only then. And then, as many have mentioned, it has the supermajority high standard of having to be ratified by 75%, 3/4 of the states. And so this is a critical tool. And if the states don't use the tools that are given them in the Constitution to preserve that balance that secures the rights of the people, again, we delegitimize our role and our opportunity. We become nothing more than mere administrative subdivision rights and the needs of our people. George Washington, in his farewell address, said, if in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers is ever in any particular wrong, let it be changed by an amendment in the way the Constitution designates. But let it not be changed by usurpation. Just let it happen. He says, though that may be the instrument of good in one instance, it's the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. And this is the way that we as state legislators exercise the voice and the right of the people to restore that balance. Mr. Chairman, I would urge you to oppose ACR-222 and Senate 161. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. I was on the list to testify. Cliff Walker Green.
Okay. I don't see you on here, but you got 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. My name is Walker Green. He and pronouns are from Deptford, New Jersey. 7 years ago, I was in this committee hearing, skipping class to testify on SCR-132, and now 7 years later, I'm back skipping work to testify to defend SCR-132. I guess some things never really change. And another thing that shouldn't change is New Jersey legislature's stance on this issue. 7 years ago, Democratic majorities and Republicans, including the Senate President Sweeney, agreed that yes, money in politics is an issue, and yes, Article 5 conventions are the solution to this. We know personally, we all agree that, I hope we all agree that money in politics is an issue. 7 years ago, on the eve of the vote, I couldn't even be there when SCR-132 passed because I developed acute appendicitis, was admitted to UPenn Hospital, and had a medical complication. I had a tube stuck up my nose and down my throat in order to survive. I survived, I left, but I left with tens of thousands of dollars in medical debt. And that's an issue that faces all Americans, which is perpetuated by for-profit pharmaceutical control in this issue, which is directly related to money in politics. So it affects all of us, whether it's student debt, climate change, medical issues. We agree that's an issue. And the reason Article 5 is the solution was because our founders are smart and gave us a mechanism if and when Congress should and will fail to uphold the public interest, that the public interest has a way of amending the Constitution. That is why the second mechanism for Article 5 conventions are there. And the reason Article 5 conventions haven't happened before is because they are so hard to put together. The U.S. Constitution is one of the hardest, if not the hardest constitution in the world to amend. And the reason there's been hundreds of calls for Article 5 conventions, and the reason it hasn't happened because you need 2/3 of the calls to be limited in scope on the same issue. If an Article 5 convention could and happen on any issue, it would have already happened already, but it hasn't because it has to be limited in scope. Legal scholars on the left, like Lawrence Lessig, to the right, like Robert G. Nadelson, agree, which is hard to find from constitutional lawyers, agree that Article 5 conventions have to be limited in scope in order to happen. So we know that's the solution. So what this truly is, the question, is leadership and backbone. Does the New Jersey legislature have the backbone and the leadership to stand on the right side of this issue? Affirm that money in politics is an issue, and affirm that Article 5 conventions are the solution. We did this 7 years ago. Hundreds of volunteers, from shopping cart attendants to lawyers to producers, came to the legislature and asked New Jersey General Assembly and the Senate to pass SCR-132, and they obliged and they recognized it was right. So what I'm asking is members on this committee to uphold that decision, agree that that was an issue, and that Article 5 is a legitimate way to amend the Constitution, ask Congress to act to amend the Constitution and overturn Citizens United, because money in politics is an issue. It's always going to be an issue, and this is the only way to fix it. So it's really leadership. Are you on the side of the people, or are you on the side of the dark interest? Don't give in to fear tactics. Don't give in to conspiracy. Stand with your gun and stand with the people and defend SCR-132 and oppose ACR-222. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Okay, that's the all who are opposed to testify. Is there any comments or concerns from the committee at this time? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion to move this resolution out of the committee today.
Moved. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask you, mentioned that those who, you read the list of names of those who submitted their support but would not testify. You didn't read the list of names of those who submitted their opposition but would not testify?
I think they were mixed together because there were a lot of people on the call.
They were definitely not mixed together.
Well, we don't have it, so.
For the record, I'm aware that the number is well over 100 of local New Jersey volunteers who submitted their opposition but did not testify.
Hold on one second. Yeah, I'm not going to read all their names, but there was I guess a list of 100 who didn't want to testify but put their names in opposed to ACR-222. For the record, is that good?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, this time, well, it's been motion. Has there been a second?
Second.
On the motion to release ACR-222 and its identical Senate counterpart, SCR-164, Assemblyman Thompson has left a no vote. Assemblyman Simonson has left a no vote. Assemblyman Moen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to mention that I want to sincerely thank everyone who's testified today. I found this to be a fascinating conversation. I'm going to vote yes today to advance this. I do think there are some concerns we can continue to work on together. I also think that by this yes vote does not necessarily even signify the fact that it does not weaken the resolve of the efforts that we all have to continue to work on these issues that have been brought to our attention today. In fact, I think that this is, in a larger sense, this is something that we collectively as a state have the option to consider. And as we are working now through the legislative process, we are doing that. And with the input of those who testified today, as I mentioned earlier, I think that there will be an opportunity to address some of the concerns and continue to work together on the concerns that were brought to this committee and frankly throughout the the remainder of the legislative session into the next to ensure that we are working together on things that we find that may not be what we support individually or collectively. And so with that, I vote yes and thank everyone for their testimony.
Assemblyman Karabenchak.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman.
I want to reiterate what Assemblyman Moen had mentioned. I had a chance to go over and review this legislation earlier, but it lacked the passion that the people who spoke today brought out. And so I learned tremendous amount from this process, and I thank everyone who took time out of their working day, their days, to educate us, to give us your perspective. Let me just give you how the story is going to end. I am going to be moving and voting in favor to move this out. There is incredible agreement around the challenges we have. Virtually what the things you talk about, healthcare costs and campaign financing. Where we disagree is there potential misuse of the prior petitions that have been submitted? And I appreciate that there is a disagreement on that perspective. There is no disagreement on the challenges we need to work on. And like Assemblyman Moen, I'd like to see this continue this conversation, but I am really moved by the passion and the information that was shared today. I am voting yes to continue the process.
Chairman Mazzeo.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody who testified for and against, and certainly being my last state and local government committee meeting as a chairman and moving on, going back into private life after 18 years, I experienced a lot of different ups and downs as far as my political career. And certainly I have to say this about a lot of people who I've come across with, being in politics and being, I guess, a elected official, we sometimes get a bad rap. But I think, I could say with some conviction that most political people have the right intentions of doing the right thing and trying to work with people and trying to get consensus. And I think that's a good day when you have some consensus somewhere in the middle. That's where I think good government is. And when you hear testimony from both sides of someone opposes or someone's for it, hopefully, we can continue to work together like a lot of our assemblymen said during today's testimony. So again, I'm going to vote yes for this, but I certainly look forward to a good dialogue. And listen, we have the greatest country on earth, and I certainly hope we can continue to keep it that way.
The bills are released.
May I request Assemblyman Moen, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, in the interest of working together as you've asked, that you take a meeting with me to discuss a potential floor amendment that will do what this bill is trying to do and what you're trying to advance, and not do the opposite as this resolution does as it's currently written. I'll be calling your office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, what happened? Oops, I'm back. The next bill on the agenda is Assembly Bill 6009 with amendments.
Assembly Bill 6009. This bill permits exemption from civil service law enforcement examination requirement for county correctional police officers and permits hiring of such officers. Mr. Chairman, there are amendments. The committee proposed amendments are to 1, permit a county or municipal police department, county sheriff's office, or a county correctional facility to recruit and employ a person as a provisional entry-level officer prior to taking the appropriate training course, and such person will be exempt from taking the civil service examination for an entry-level officer position. 2, require the person to successfully complete the appropriate training course within 9 months from the date of hire. 3, require that upon successful completion of the course, the person will be promoted from a provisional entry-level officer to an entry-level officer. 4, prohibit the use of the law to circumvent the intergovernmental transfer process. 5, permits a sheriff's department to hire a person under the provisions of the bill upon adoption of an ordinance or a resolution by the governing body authorizing such hiring and the adoption of a conflict of interest and nepotism policy. And lastly, 6, removes the current provision of the law permitting the exemption from the requirement to take the civil service examination for an entry-level law enforcement officer position for those persons who have successfully completed the required training course.
Okay, thank you, Rashad. In favor, would like to testify, David Owens Jr., Camden County Department of Corrections.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
My name is David Owens. I'm the Director of the Camden County Department of Corrections. I would like to thank you, sir, and the committee for the opportunity of testifying before you today and answering any questions that you may have. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank our Assemblyman Moen, for his leadership in sponsoring this very important bill. Mr. Chairman, the kindest thing that I can say about our present situation, that it is dire. We have significant vacancies within our department with an inability to fill those vacancies in a rapid and efficient way. Therefore, it has forced us to cancel leaves, cancel days off. I'm certain you and the committee can see that that is unsustainable over the time. By approving this bill, it gives us an opportunity to go into every community in our county and recruit and develop career law enforcement officers that we can train and develop to serve and protect our community. With your approval, we will be able to move forward in an aggressive way to fill our vacancies and meet the challenges that is beginning to confront us with high recruitment from the private sector. I do not intend to be long because our situation is dire, and I wanted to have this opportunity to come before you and make that clear. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Next is Jerry Sinitsky from Cumberland County, New Jersey. You with us, Jerry? Karen Taylor, Camden County Department of Corrections.
Good afternoon, Chairman Maceo and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you to provide support for Assembly Bill A6009, which provides the alternative path of employment for law enforcement officers, specifically correctional police officers. As warden of the Camden County Department of Corrections and a representative of the New Jersey County Jail Wardens Association, I'm committed to ensure the public safety, staff safety, and the safety of thousands of those individuals who are within our county facilities. The challenges of hiring and retaining staff in the current climate has been difficult. Nevertheless, we must continue to create and present strategies to safeguard the safety of the staff and the inmate population we are entrusted to care for. The alternative route to correction will allow correctional facilities throughout the state to hire certified entry-level correctional police officers to supplement the hiring process. Along with civil service, the Alternative to Corrections program will provide another valuable opportunity for the here and now. I cannot in good conscience delay when this bill could offer immediate relief to my staff and offer greater programming to the inmate population and the community. When correctional facilities have large vacancies, safety and programming ultimately suffer. As administrators, we must be innovative and proactive. Currently, Camden County Department of Correction has over 100 vacancies, which will continue to increase with 2022 retirements. Camden County, the appointing authority, has attempted to hire via the civil service process. However, the certified lists that are provided, when we receive them, we're confronted with the realization that many of the names on the promulgated list are for candidates from counties as far as Essex, Middlesex, Bergen, and counties beyond. Most will not be commuting to Camden County or the southern part of the state for the entry-level position. I recognize the commitment of the legislator and the legislature to strive for workforces that reflect the diversity of the jurisdictions that they serve. Assembly Bill 6009 will allow Camden County and counties throughout the state to hire entry-level correctional police officers from the communities that we serve. The most current certified list that we received from the Civil Service Commission this past September provided a list of 500 eligible candidates. More than half of the 500 names that were provided lived outside of Camden County, with a large majority from the northern counties. Of the 500 potential candidates, only 15 expressed interest in the position. Of the 15 who were sent applications, only 5 returned the application. And this is before we conduct background checks, physical assessments, psychological evaluations, and academy training. The alternative route bill will allow Camden County and other counties to be able to identify potential candidates within our community, which will enable us to hire these individuals and begin and commence their law enforcement careers in the field of
Ms.
correction.
Taylor, your time's up. I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
No problem. I just want to say, and I urge you to support Bill 6009.
All right, thank you very much. Next is John Donio from from New Jersey Association of Counties. How you doing, John?
That's okay. I'm good, sir. How are you? Thank you. It's good to see you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for posing this legislation. And if you don't mind me saying, for your leadership as chairman of this committee over the years, I've enjoyed working with you a great deal. You've done a lot of good, so thank you, sir, and charity as well, if that's appropriate. I also want to take a minute to thank Assemblyman Moen for his leadership in sponsoring this important piece of legislation, and just concur with what we heard from the good Director Owen and Warden Taylor. We've worked very closely on this issue for a number of years. We're probably talking about 4 or 5 years. It's an important matter not only for Camden County, but for county correctional facilities throughout the state. So again, we're just going to encourage the committee to vote yes on the bill at this time. So thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Curtin, Bergen County Sheriff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Daniel Willenberg. I'm Chief Counsel for the Bergen County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Curtin was dialed in on his phone, I believe, for the last about 40 minutes or so, and I think he got cut off, but he authorized me to speak on his behalf and on behalf of the department in favor of Assembly Bill 6009. The Bergen County Sheriff's Office supports the amendments of this bill, which would permit sheriff's offices to hire entry-level sheriff's officers and correctional police officers without the requirement that such officers take the entry-level law enforcement examination. The Sheriff's Office seeks to select the best candidates from the broadest pool. While the civil service exam process aims to accomplish this goal, it often has the effect of foreclosing opportunity for qualified candidates. These amendments to A6009 will give the sheriffs the tools to hire the best candidates from their communities. The sheriff would also like to bring to the committee's attention one aspect of the bill which may require additional revision. Specifically, paragraphs C2 and C3 of the bill as amended require an ordinance or resolution of the governing body authorizing a sheriff or a county correctional facility to hire under this process. However, as a constitutional officer, sheriff's hiring is not subject to county commissioner or governing body approval. The sheriff's office can also independently adopt its own conflict of interest and nepotism policies as contemplated by the bill. Therefore, we ask that this requirement of an ordinance or resolution by the governing body be deleted from those paragraphs applicable to the hiring of sheriff's officers and correctional police officers by a sheriff. The Bergen County Sheriff's Office would be happy to provide the committee or the sponsor with any proposed language if they'd like. Once again, we do support the passage of this bill. Thank you.
Okay, the sponsors here, I guess they'll be in conversation. We're going to get this out of committee today, though, so we'll continue to move this legislation forward. There's no slips in opposition today. Any comment from the sponsor today?
Chairman, I just want to thank you for posting this bill today. I want to thank the leadership also for this opportunity to really dig down on this issue, and I really truly believe to address this issue. As you've heard from the warden and the director from Camden County, and also the representative from the Bergen County Sheriff's Office, this is not something that is specific to a certain region of the state, and it's not something that, frankly, the pandemic has at all helped. As we began to draft this legislation and work on it, just little by little, we heard from different areas of the state and their expressions of interest in the legislation because they realized it would help them as well. Just to tick off, so we can put some perspective on this, our sponsors, both on the Senate side and the Assembly side, encompass up to this point representatives from Camden County, Burlington County, Mercer County, and just today, to make this a bipartisan bill, we heard from Assemblyman McClellan from Cape May County, who has expressed his interest in supporting this as a co-prime sponsor. And then, as you can see from the testimony today, in addition to Camden and Bergen, I did receive phone calls from Cumberland County, who, in the words of, I believe, Director Owens, the dire circumstances around these issues were the same, I would say the same tenor, the same tone that was used by the County Commissioner of Cumberland County, Joe Dorella, when describing the issues that they're dealing with there. This is something that I think by it being permissive, it allows for the counties and the municipalities that see this need, it allows for them to use this opportunity to help provide that alternative route if they need it. For municipalities and counties that don't need it or don't want to, they have no need to do that. This is something that I think, in addition to the benefits that were espoused by some of the previous speakers, this also, I think, over time, there's this adage, this urge to make sure that our communities that are policing or serving in our jails or in our sheriff's departments are more like the members of the community that they represent. And this is something that I think will truly work towards that goal. And so, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for posting this and welcome any further conversation. The last thing I'll say, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Zwillinger's comments on that potential amendment, that's something I'm happy to look at. And perhaps after the committee meeting today, in advance of the voting sessions, we can look at that and work with the Senate sponsor to address that issue. So thank you.
All right. Good job, Assemblyman. I appreciate your comments, and certainly it looks like a lot of work was done in this bill. And someone's told me there's never a great bill, there's a good bill. I think you got a good bill here. All right, at this time, I take a motion to move this bill out of committee?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
On the motion to release A6009 and its Senate counterpart S3672 as amended, the bills are identical. Assemblyman Thompson left a yes vote. Assemblyman Simonson left a yes vote. Assemblyman Moen.
Yes.
Assemblyman Karabenchak.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman.
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio.
Yes.
The bills are released.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Assembly Bill 1335. Can you read the statement, please?
Yes, okay. Assembly Bill 1335 and its Senate counterpart S2667 permit a municipality which has a population of less than 2,500 to withdraw from civil service by ordinance.
Okay. In favor, would like to testify, Lloyd Buckaloo, New Jersey League of Municipalities.
Chairman, before I begin, I would just like to take a brief moment on behalf of the League of Municipalities to thank you for your leadership and your willing to work with us throughout the years, Assemblyman Mazzio, so thank you. I'm here, I'll be very brief to speak in support of A1335. I don't know if folks are aware, but the first municipality in New Jersey to enroll in civil service was back in November 8th, 1910. So it's over a century that municipalities made a decision by the voters to go into civil service. The rules are structured in such a way that that decision from 1910 stands. That municipality can change their form of government, can change their boundary lines, can change their name, but cannot change a decision made by voters over 100 years ago on the municipal management of their workforce. Things have changed since 1910. Labor laws have come into place, both federal and state labor protections. Civil service has the layer of protection, collective bargaining. So we just believe that the time has come to give municipalities the option, if they so choose, if it meets their community, the ability to withdraw from civil service. And again, the municipalities that would be impacted by this bill have very small workforces that are required to follow the same rules and regulations that state workforce has to follow.
Okay, thank you. Also, John Donadio, New Jersey Association of Counties, opposed, no need to testify. Eric, in favor. And also in favor, Eric Richard, New Jersey State, AFL-CIO. Oh, I got it mixed up.
Okay.
Opposed, no need to testify. Eric Richard, New Jersey State, AFL-CIO. And is there any comment or concerns from the committee at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move this bill out of committee.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
On the motion to approve and release A1335 and its counterpart S2667, Assemblyman Thompson left a yes vote. Assemblyman Simonson also left a yes vote. Assemblyman Moen?
Yes.
Assemblyman Karabenchak?
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman?
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio?
Yes.
A1335 and S2667 are favorably released and the bills are identical.
Okay, last on the agenda is Assembly Bill 5930. Have read this statement, please.
A5930, it increases from $25,000 to $250,000, the purchasing threshold permitting the Director of Division of Purchase and Property to delegate authority to agencies and also increases from 25,000 to 250,000 the bid advertising threshold on certain contracts. Mr. Chairman, there are amendments. The committee proposes to amend the bill to change the purchasing threshold from 250,000 to 150,000 beginning on the effective date of the bill, 200,000 beginning on January 1 of 2023, and 250,000 beginning on January 1, 2024, and thereafter.
Okay, there's no one to testify. So any comments from the committee at this time? Seeing none, I'll make a motion. Do I have a motion to move it out of committee?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
On the motion to release A5930, Assemblyman Thompson left a yes vote. Assemblyman Simonson left a yes vote. Assemblyman Moen.
Yes.
Assemblyman Karavinchak.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fryman.
Yes.
Chairman Mazzio.
Yes.
The bill is released as amended. Also, as a reminder concerning the post-meeting reporting process for today's meeting, Assembly Rule 10:16 requires that members to confirm their votes by signing the vote record for the bills or resolutions being reported by the committee. Because current circumstances do not allow members to be physically present and sign these vote records, an authorized waiver of the rule has been obtained and a new procedure is being used. OLS committee staff will transmit the vote records to each member and the majority and minority committee aides. OLS asks that the members review the vote records within 24 hours and notify OLS committee staff regarding any corrections that are required to the records. If OLS staff does not receive a notification for a vote correction from a member, OLS will conclude that no correction is required and the original recorded vote will remain in place.
Thank you, Rashad. I appreciate that. And I just want to thank everybody on the committee that it's been an honor and a privilege working with everybody. And I want to wish you all a happy, healthy, and a holiday season. And, next year is going to be a new session, and I wish the very best. And I know that, there's a lot of work to be done. And I think that, with people like yourself who are on this committee, you always do the right thing. And again, it was an honor to work with you all. Thank you. With that, the meeting is adjourned.